Hey, it's Landon. Here's round 3 from the modern RCQ that I just won with Jund Goblins. Round 2, we beat Infect 2-1, and round 1, we beat Mono White Death and Taxes 2-0. So this is round 3 against my friend Joe, who I know usually plays Yawgmoth of some kind. So we started off this match losing the die roll, and our first opening 7 was 2 Ignoble Hierarchs, 4 lands, and an Ether Vial. We ship this one back. It's not enough action. Ramping into nothing. Just hoping we top deck something. We open up the next 7, and it's a 0 lander. I immediately see 0 lands, ship it back. Unfortunate, but it happens. And then our 5-card hand, we put a Kiki Jiki back and a Munitions Expert back. And we're left with Harbinger, Mountain, Ether Vial, Conspicuous Snoop, and Boggart Trawler. Just kind of going for the combo as fast as we can, because usually in game 1 against Yawgmoth opponents, they're a little light on removal, and they kind of just go for a combo. So sometimes you can race in the first game, race to the combo, and that's kind of usually the strategy I take against Yawgmoth. So we'll see how that turns out. He leads off with Blooming Marsh and a Delighted Halfling. We go Mountain, Ether Vial. Plays another Blooming Marsh, into a Young Wolf, into a Birthing Ritual, which is a really great card. He ends up deciding to get an Orcish Bowmasters by sacrificing the Young Wolf. Young Wolf comes back with a 1/1 counter on it. Hits me for 1. And now he has 4 creatures on the board on turn 2. Vial ticks up. We're still full combo mode. It's kind of hard to overcome that board without some serious help from Mog Mob or something like that. We play out a fetch land. Here I'm deciding, do I want to wait till Vial goes up to 2 so I can kind of like get an instant speed combo, or am I just going to die to beats by then? And I just decide to go for it. He's kind of played out a lot of his hand, and there aren't too many creatures in his deck that he could hit off Birthing Ritual that would mess up our combo. So I just decided to go for it. Play out the Conspicuous Snoop. Shockland on top. Pass it back. He plays out more creatures. Marionette Apprentice. Skip ahead a bit. I think this is the Birthing Ritual trigger. He sacks a Halfling and puts a Prosperous Innkeeper into play. So he's got 3 mana untapped. We go to our turn. And here we just jam the combo. First, we fetch to see if there's not a Boggart Harbinger on top that we could cast from the top instead of our hand. So we fetch a Mountain, Cavern of Souls on top. It doesn't do us any good. Jam the combo. And here, I'm going to pause for a second. Here you can decide to just go for it now. And if he has removal, he removes it and you're kind of toast. Or you can kind of pass it back and see if he taps out. And the second he does so, you can go for it. So that's what I end up doing. I end up saying, put Kiki on top, go ahead. He flashes in a Bowmasters to try to kill Boggart Harbinger, and now we kind of just have to go for it. If he has Fatal Push, he has Fatal Push, but now we just kind of have to go for it because he's going to kill the Harbinger and stop the combo if we don't. So we end up going for it, and he doesn't have any more removal, so we make a million Snoops, copy Harbinger, Sling on top, GG's. Going to game 2. Sideboarding in 2 Pithing Needles, 2 Fatal Pushes, no Leyline of the Void, because that's kind of a losing strategy against Yawgmoth, in my opinion, right now. At least this version of Yawgmoth. I don't know. I think we may have boarded out a Kiki Jiki and Boggart Harbinger because he's going to bring in a lot of removal. So the combo is more difficult to do. I believe I brought in Masked Vandal. Yes, I brought a Masked Vandal to hit Birthing Rituals, Chthonian Nightmares, that kind of thing. and any other 8 pieces he has. And I think that was probably all that I brought in. So let's move forward to game 2. He leads out on Halfling. I lead out on Cavern Ether Vial. And let's see the hand here really quick. He ends up Necromentia naming Snoop. So we can see my hand is Yawgmoth, Munitions Expert, Bogger Harbinger, 3 lands. He removes all the conspicuous Snoops from my library, so the combo is no longer possible. It's an interesting choice from him, but I guess he just really didn't want to die to the combo. So Necromentia it is. Luckily, we weren't kind of relying on the combo with our current hand. We're kind of just removal heavy. Yawgmoth is pretty dang good against decks like these, like Yawgmoth, that just kind of like flood the board. Especially if you can get some nightmares going with Yawgmoth, you can just kind of wipe their board. So he takes away our Snoops. Comes back to our turn. Feeling pretty fine at this moment. I end up deciding to play out a fetch land in case I want to get a surveil land instead of playing this Munitions Expert because it currently doesn't kill anything. Plays out a Yawgmoth into Birthing Ritual, much like last game. Trigger Birthing Ritual. He will sack his Yawgmoth, get a Haywire Might, which takes out our Vial, which is kind of sad. He doesn't decide to do it yet, though. So we're going to fetch. I decided to just get a Raucous Theater because all that casting expert here would do is just force him to use Haywire Might right away, which I didn't really care too much about. I'd rather just save the Munitions Experts for something more important. So it looks like we surveil, keep something on top. Before my Vial ticks up, he takes out Vial. Can't remember which card I surveilled to the top there. Oh, looks like Matron. I don't remember which order that was in. I think I surveilled Matron to the top. Shotgun Stomping Ground. And it's too bad that Yawgmoth no longer kills both of their creatures. You can only kill one of their creatures with Yawgmoth. But I believe I played out. I considered killing the Halfling in case he doesn't have a 4th land and he could play Yawgmoth. I decided not to do that. He surveils something to the top. Thought seizes me. Takes the Matron. Seems like probably the right choice. Triggers Birthing Ritual. Such a good card. Sacks his Halfling to get a Wall of Roots. He must not be hurting on lands. We play out our fetch land. Fetch out a mountain. I may have top decked a Ringleader. I don't remember. Yes. Top decked Ringleader. Pretty bad Ringleader. We hit Ignoble Hierarch. Get some crusty draws out of the way. And I think I turn him sideways here. Not much of a reason not to. I mean, Bowmasters would kind of be poopy, but that's about it. So we take out the Yawgmoth. He Fatal Pushes Yawgmoth. I dome him for 3. And he's starting to get a little precarious on his life total, if I recall. Triggers Ritual. Sacks a Halfling into an Innkeeper. Back to my turn. We shock in the Trawler as a land. We play out the Vandal we drew. Take out Birthing Ritual. And then we cast, I believe, the Hierarch and Expert on Innkeeper. kind of clear out his board a little bit. Try to keep it as empty as we can. He plays out another innkeeper, passes it back, and if I recall, he's kind of top decking at this point. Just drew a lot of creatures that didn't really do much together. We cast out the Harbinger. I think we may get Battlecry Goblin here, if I remember right. Yep. Can't get a conspicuous snoop or anything. Battlecry seems to be the most aggressive option because we're starting to get a pretty wide board here. So I put that on top of my deck and pass it back. I believe my last card in hand is Sling Gang Lieutenant. But then he plays out a Plague Engineer, which I did know that he ran those. It's just unfortunate he is known for running those. Clears out almost our whole board. And feeling pretty bad now. Especially because I knew what my top card was. Sling Gang Lieutenant is useless. Play out Battlecry Goblin. We got a 1-1 and a 0-2. So we're not feeling great. And he's gaining life over there. Doesn't do anything. Comes back to us. We draw Kiki Jiki, which turns out to be pretty insane in this game. We run it out. We could take out a treasure token for some reason, but he's got plenty of lands. So we decided to pass it back. We've got 2 1-1s and a 0-2. So he surveils. Plays out a Birthing Ritual. And I want to make sure that I can exile his Birthing Ritual before it triggers, so I do this before combat or whenever the phase changes. Make a copy of Masked Vandal, exile another creature from my graveyard, take out Birthing Ritual. I believe he's top decking at this point. I don't think he has any cards in hand, and we just have a useless Sling Gang. I think we hit a string of lands here for a while. We've got Arena of Glory. Not much we can do. Not too much pressure we can put on. I could have copied Battlecry Goblin in my turn, but I decided to do it on his end step to make a bigger swing. So I make a Battlecry Goblin copy. I accidentally activate here before making a copy of Battlecry Goblin, which cost me 1 point of damage. Didn't end up mattering, but still I activated and then forgot I should have activated Kiki first. So after activating, I make another copy of Battlecry Goblin. Then I count up my power, make sure I have 6. Doesn't really matter because the Goblin token dies immediately. Still. So I missed out on some damage there. Just 1 point of damage. I'm really hoping he blocks with Plague Engineer, but I don't think he'll ever do that. So he just kind of takes the free block. Then we pump 2 more times and hit him for 10 damage. Here we hit him down to 2. He could have been down to 1. Doesn't really matter. So let's skip ahead. So this is a turn where he draws Chthonian Nightmare. And this is a long, drawn-out turn. He ends up casting Nightmare, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times or so. Gains a ton of life, goes up to 13 or something like that. Gets a bunch of Prosperous Innkeeper triggers, and I can't kill the Birthing Ritual because I attacked with, or because I used Kiki on my turn. Or sorry, I can't kill the Nightmare yet because I used Kiki on my turn. So we cast Nightmare a ton. We'll skip ahead. Gains a bunch of life from all the Prosperous Innkeepers, Young Wolves. It's looking pretty sad for me here. Luckily, though, I do have a way to kill Nightmare once he casts it again. And he doesn't really have any creatures that can kill my creatures in his graveyard. Like no Bowmasters, no, I don't know, no more Plague Engineers or anything like that. So I draw a Surveil land, play it. and I see a Goblin Matron on the top of my deck. Goblin Matron lets us search for Yawgmoth to kill Plague Engineer and one of his other things. So I decided that's kind of like the best possible draw. Keep that on top. And then my plan is to kill the Chthonian Nightmare once he plays it again. Or rather, once he activates it. So he plays out the Nightmare. He goes to activate it. And in response, since Chthonian Nightmare's activation is only as a sorcery, I create a copy of Masked Vandal and exile it. Go to my turn, draw the Matron, play out Matron for Yawgmoth, which is kind of crazy, especially with Kiki Jiki. So we get the mob, play it out, copy it with Kiki, kill Plague Engineer and Prosperous Innkeeper. And I decide not to just blow up anything else with Yawgmoth because I feel like if he keeps missing top decks, I can just keep copying Yawgmoth and he can basically just never have any creatures on board. So I think instead I decide to just attack in here and pass. I get an activation off Battlecry as well. I probably could have also attacked with the other Yawgmoth, so that was almost definitely a mistake. Although I did want to get the token to stay in play, so maybe that's fine. The token wouldn't have stayed in play if I hadn't killed the Plague Engineer. So he takes some damage here, blocks, goes to his turn. He surveils a Yawgmoth in the graveyard. He draws a Legion's End. He goes to take out Battlecry Goblin, which seems like probably the right choice, although it's just kind of tough. He gets to see my hand. He sees the Sling Gang Lieutenant, which is now turned on because Plague Engineer's dead. Time to make another copy of Yawgmoth. Swing in with everything. And he's dead here. He blocks what he can, but we hit him for 6 with the Yawgmoths and then cast Sling Gang Lieutenant to clean up the rest. And that is the match. So the Yawgmoth matchup, it's a little different. I think his build is a lot more mid-rangey and focused on Birthing Ritual and Chthonian Nightmare rather than like, I think he definitely does also play chords and stuff to get Yawgmoth. He plays Agatha's Soul Cauldron also, if I recall. But essentially the plan in game 1 is fast combo. And if we can get some Yawgmoths out there, Munitions Expert, clean up some of the little creatures. Battlecry Goblin can usually get through some damage. He specifically plays Plague Engineer because it's good against Nadu insect tokens, because you can just name insect and it prevents them from comboing off. But coincidentally, goblins tend to have very low toughness, so it's pretty good against us too. In those cases, Yawgmoth is super good. The card's just been insane so far. So really encourage you to play at least 2, especially if you're playing Nightmare. So in games 2 and 3 against Yawgmoth, it's usually more of a slog. You have less opportunities to combo because you usually have more fatal pushes and other removal. I mean, if they ever land Yawgmoth, it's kind of just GG. So unless you have a Pithing Needle out. But yeah, we end up getting there. We faded some top decks, and we eventually got the Matron to get us out from under the Plague Engineer. So I will catch you in the next round.